In 1974, I worked with my father, songwriter-producer Buddy Kaye, as associate producer of the Little Prince spoken word album. I flew to New York City from Los Angeles and met with A. Joseph Tandet, owner of North American book and theatrical rights to the Antoine de Saint-Exupéry children's story, and negotiated a license to record an English narration based on the original Kathleen Wood's translation. The world-famous book, first published in 1943, had already sold 40 million copies, but no record company wanted to finance the recording. My father then partnered with a Los Angeles-based TV cartoon producer and formed LP Ventures to independently produce the album. A third partner from Chicago was brought in, and funding was complete. Our next challenge was to cast the characters, but no quote-unquote name actors wanted to sign on. About the same time, we read that Richard Burton was asked to play the aviator in a new Paramount Pictures Bob Fosse, Lerner and Loewe live-action musical adaptation of The Little Prince, but was rejected when he refused to test for the singing part. Note, Rich had already won 2 Tony Awards, including a Tony for his singing role in the Lerner and Loewe musical Camelot. What were they thinking? So my father then called Rich's agent, who said Rich would have to be paid $1 million if he agrees to play the aviator in our production. This was a problem when our total budget was $60,000. Fortunately, after several calls, he agreed to pitch the project to the star, who lived in Switzerland, and to our delight, Richard Burton accepted the engagement for our proposed $25,000 upfront payment plus a royalty after 250,000 albums sold. Needless to say, at this point, the other actors we were speaking with, Jonathan Winters, Jim Backus, John Carradine, Claudine Longet, Mark Conrad, and young Christian Williams, son of Andy Williams and Claudine Longet, signed on to the project. Williams' part was later replaced by the brilliant 7-year-old actor Billy Simpson, who delightfully played the Little Prince. To be helpful, Rich also agreed to coordinate the recording session to coincide with his day off while filming The Klansman in Oroville, California, rather than having us pay for an expensive trip to Los Angeles from Switzerland. A&M Recording Studio Hollywood, a 5-hour drive from Oroville, was then booked for a 1-day recording session, March 24, 1974. And on that day, our production team, cast, and A&M studio personnel gathered to await Rich's arrival. At 12 noon, precisely on time, a chauffeured white Cadillac limo drove through the A&M guard gates on La Brea Avenue, and Richard Burton stepped out from the back seat of the car, wearing a sport jacket and mock turtleneck shirt, and holding a scruffy white Maltese, one-eyed dog. A catered lunch was served in the studio, and PR photos were taken with the actors and producers, and the recording began. I sat in the control booth with the recording engineer, as levels were set on the mics, while my father stood in the studio, script in hand, directing the actors. Note, Richard Burton was always very respectful with his response when suggestions about his lines were made, but he never wavered when what he was doing was to his liking, and if asked to do another take, he would politely agree, but do his lines exactly as he did the first time, i.e., he did his lines his way, and that turned out to be a good thing. After completing our A&M recording session, day 2, that Rich graciously stayed for with no additional pay, while having lunch in Hollywood at the Formosa Cafe, he conveyed to my father and I that Paramount Pictures director Richard Donner had called him to ask if he would come to Los Angeles to test for the lead role of the aviator in Paramount's Little Prince musical, and Rich pointedly answered that he'd rather audition over the phone, and improvised to the French folk song Frère Jacques, singing Mr. Donner, go F yourself, and hung up. giving us greater insight into why he accepted a $25,000 fee for playing the aviator in our album production and turned down $1 million from Paramount. The lunch conversation continued, and he told us about the one-eyed Maltese, a present given to he and Elizabeth Taylor by someone who thought the most beautiful couple should have this ugly dog. But in true character, instead of refusing the scruffy Maltese, the dog was loved and became a lifelong companion. After lunch, as we were leaving the cafe, Rich asked the waiter for a to-go bag to take his barely eaten lunch back to the limo for his dog, and it was clear that his two-martini lunch was more to his liking. Burton's Revenge, the Paramount Pictures' $17 million budget feature-length musical The Little Prince, turned out to be a box office stiff, grossing less than $1 million, giving Richard Burton great satisfaction in 1976 when he accepted the Grammy Award for Best Children's Recording for his narration of our $60,000 Little Prince recording. And I was once again reminded of Richard Burton's words as he departed A&M Studios in 1974.
The LP version of The Little Prince is a memorable work, and the time allotted for its stay on Earth is always and forever and eternal.
Listen and enjoy Richard Burton narrating The Little Prince on Audible.com.